Hey guys, just a quick heads up before we started. We had some pretty serious audio issues on this episode, and it basically resulted in us having to use some external audio sources for both Matt and my audio. So neither Matt nor I will sound as good this time around. We're sorry about that. But we still wanted to release the episode anyway because we think it's good. We think you're going to like it, but it's just going to not be quite as crisp as you're used to. But we'll be back to everything normal next week. It's just a one-off thing. Really sorry. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and I am joined this week by my co-host, Matt Freeman. How's it going, Matt?
Oye, Scott, ¿qué tú piensas ir a The Expanse?
What?
Topuchi, ¿qué? Fine, I'll speak your filthy Tumang language.
This week on the show, we are doing another one of our patron-produced episodes. For those of you that don't know, folks who pledge to us at the Doof Warrior level on Patreon, that's patreon.com/doofmedia, get to select a topic for us to do a show on. This week, one of our patrons, Marcus, wanted us to take a look at the science fiction show The Expanse. So we'll be talking about season 1 of that show, but we couldn't talk about Expanse without inviting someone onto the show, right, Matt?
That's right. Someone very special, big fan of The Expanse, space explorer, my brother, Daniel Freeman.
Hello.
How's it going, Daniel?
Hello. Good. Great.
It's been a while since we've had you on the show, Daniel. I mean, that's both true and not true because you just had an episode talking about Neil Stephenson's newest book.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, we did that like a month ago, so that doesn't count.
That was a bonus episode. Yeah, we did that a long time ago, too.
Yeah.
And Daniel, as a physicist, I mean, I assume that we're just going to be talking about the Epstein drive for an hour.
I mean,
oh, good.
I'd love to.
Oh, good. I can't wait to talk about science on the show.
That's science fiction, Scott. Isn't that why you consume science fiction, to just know about the science?
I feel like the key part of that phrase is the fiction part.
But it starts with science.
Yeah, but it ends with fiction.
But
I like both things.
All right, so we're going to talk about The Expanse, and then I think we have a couple things we've been watching that we wanted to talk about at the very end of the show, so we'll do that real quick. But it's mostly going to be talking about The Expanse and just season 1, just the first 10 episodes of the show. So there's going to be spoilers for all 10 of those episodes. So if you haven't watched The Expanse, go do it first. It's on Amazon Prime right now, so you can go watch it.
So, Scott, had you had any familiarity with the Expanse verse?
Well, so I knew of the show because it was in headlines back when it got canceled after 3 seasons and then miraculously revived, which we'll talk about later. And I knew that it was based on a book series. And I tried to watch it once, and I just bounced right off this thing.
Okay.
I think it was probably about a year ago. I think it actually was probably because Daniel, we were doing something with Daniel, and he said, you should watch The Expanse. And I said, okay. And I sat down and tried to watch it, and I can't even remember what it was. It might have been the mood I was in. It might have just been, but like I was out 20 minutes into the first episode. Yeah, I was just like, I can't do this.
This also happened to Michael. I tried to make Michael watch it, and he similarly completely bounced off of it because he found it just so boring. Which
can I? Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but like, I'm. This is like the only negative thing that I'm going to say. Maybe is that for the first like half of the show, as I was watching it, I was like, I can't understand what anyone is saying. Am I losing my hearing? And I eventually and I've been wanting to do this for months and months, but I eventually went and I bought a sound bar to attach to my TV because I'm like, I can't hear the dialogue in this show. It's like just mixed in with the background and clanking of boots on the ground, and like everyone's wearing helmets when they talk, and now I can hear it, and now it's fine. But like I can actually imagine like being subliminally annoyed by the show because you can't like hear people talking.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Michael just actually found it boring, but that is
maybe.
Yeah. I will say, like, we're gonna get in. I think the pilot is not a great bit of television.
I love the pilot.
I think I have very good things to say about the show. I very much enjoyed my time with it this time. I really want to spend time, like, after we talk here, watching the other 2 release seasons and watching the 4th when it does come out. But Yeah, the beginning was a little rough for me. What did you think, Matt? I know beside that complaint aside, what were your overall thoughts?
I liked it. I liked the show overall. I thought the show actually got better as the season went on. I guess you were talking about the pilot. I was. I guess this will be my only other negative comment is like I was expecting more of the ship combat, because that was like one of the selling points for the Expanse is like, oh yeah, it's got like this really realistic ship combat, and it felt like they were just really trying to save on their budget or something, because you just get you really don't have much of a sense of what was going on. I was actually thinking during some of these ship fights, like, man, if I hadn't read the book, I wouldn't actually get what was happening in this fight. Like,
I didn't read the book, and I did not get what was happening in a lot of the ship fights.
I mean, that seems to me an avoidable failure, and maybe it literally is that they were running low on money, and they like thought that they were going to be able to animate more stuff, and then they couldn't. I have no idea, honestly. I mean, but like,
I can give one maybe reason in that the show actually even takes liberties with like one thing which I'm sure we'll dive in on is that the books try to be sort of realistic. I'm air quoting as hard as I can, and like ship fights in space would just be really boring, and like nothing would happen for a really, really long time until suddenly like a bullet comes at you at moving several kilometers per second and then destroys your ship suddenly. So like to the extent that space combat could be realistically visualized in a TV show, I think they did a pretty good job and actually made it more compelling than the book. I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think for me it was just like, for most of the show, the attacking ship is a stealth ship that you don't see. So it's for me, it was like, wait, who are they fighting again? Oh, we don't know. Is it just that I don't know, or is it the characters don't know? And like, I had trouble balancing that.
Yeah. And there was when the stealth ships are attacking the Martian battlecruiser, I was like, man, if I didn't understand that the stealth ships are intending on boarding them, then I would have no idea why the stealth ships are like facing their thrusters at the warship, because they're decelerating as they approach, which is so. But like I only know that because I like read the books and understand like the way they do ship combat in this world. So anyway, that surprised me, because I thought of that as like, oh yeah, that's going to be one of the main cool things about this, is I'm going to get to see all this awesome ship combat. And then I found that it was not really emphasized, but that ended up being kind of fine, because there's not all that much ship combat, and I really liked all of the character and story and setting and pretty much everything else about it.
Yeah, because that's the cool thing about it to me is the complexity of the setting, the three different factions all waging like kind of cold wars against each other, and the characters kind of thrown into the middle of that. All that was really great. So before we dive into it in detail, Daniel, you obviously have a long history with this thing. What is that history? Have you read all the books? Have you seen all of the show?
Yeah, so I think I watched the first season of the TV show, and then I thought it was super cool, and then I read all of the books that existed at the time. And these books come out like super regularly. I think they come out maybe even one a year, and have so for the past like 7 years. There's a lot of books. So I yes, I've read all the books, and I've seen all the seasons as they've come out. And I think of them as just kind of fun adventure, sci-fi kind of popcorn fiction. It is sort of like realistic, again, heavy air quotes. But the stories are a little bit, contrived, and it's all actiony and space battles, but it has kind of like a Game of Thrones-ness to it, with the conflict between the three factions, like you said, and that's it's a super compelling world, and I think it's fun.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I guess the thing I like the best about the series is just that it manages to do a lot with a very simple conceit, and that conceit being humans have access to an efficient engine that can get them around space. Like a lot of times sci-fi stories go overboard with like crazy technology, but I think the authors worked really hard to like think about what a world looks like where humanity has access to this Epstein drive. And
Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna give you guys 5 minutes to nerd out about the physics of the show.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wanted to say I really agree, and in fact, I like really appreciate the idea of the Epstein drive, because it's just like, okay, let's say you want to go between, Earth and Jupiter or something, and you have a drive that can give you 1 g of thrust, which coincidentally gives you like a nice simulated gravity on your spaceship, and it gives you 1 g of consistent thrust. Wow, you can get to Jupiter or whatever pretty quickly. Actually, it shocked me to realize that, but it's like when you're thinking about all of the like multi-year, multi-decade like missions that humanity has made to the outer solar system, that's because there's like thrust for the first tiny bit of the trip, and then they're just coasting basically for the rest. And I never really did the math in terms of like what a constant acceleration can do for you. And I thought that was pretty fun. I mean, maybe this is an impossible technology. Maybe it's just a very, very difficult technology. But it's still fun to think about, to realize like, oh, you don't need a warp drive to get around the solar system. You just need like a moderately high thrust engine.
How they slow down though?
They just turn around.
Flip over.
They flip around.
So it's like half the trip deceleration then?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. That's exactly why they could see the stealth ships that were attacking them, is because they were decelerating, and they're therefore shooting their thrusters at them.
Yeah. You're right. I should have caught that. The sciencey stuff happened and my mind kind of just glazed.
Well, that's the thing is, I was watching it and I was like, they didn't explain that at all. They didn't explain why they're seeing the drive. Like, did they think everyone watching the show knows this?
Isn't that great though? Like, I don't want the characters to be like, we can see the stealth ships because we live in a universe where there are engines that provide efficient thrust and they must actually decelerate to reach us. Like that, I hate that in fiction. And the show is just like, yeah, that's it's happening. It's happening right now.
But the book explained it though. And I mean, I get that the book can explain it because the book can do a info dump in a way that television can't. But
I think it would have killed the show to do that, to be honest with you, because I mean, like, killed it, yeah. Like I completely agree that I did not pick up on a lot of the stuff you guys are talking about. I knew there was, obviously they had an engine and it let them go fast enough, and that was really all the world needs. And I mean, the bonus stuff is really cool and helps it feel realistic and stuff. But I think taking the time to dive into the details of that would have like destroyed the pace of the show.
I mean, it also makes it kind of a unique show in that most sci-fi depictions of space battles just look like dogfights between airplanes.
Right. Yeah.
Which is
it's
like
World War II in space. That's what everyone does.
And that's awesome. It looks awesome when, like, I remember back when the episodes 1, 2, and 3 had like really crazy of Star Wars had really crazy dogfights with spaceships, and they looked insane. But they're dogfights. They're like, if you were actually in space and you had access to this kind of engine, this is what battle would look like. And I think that's awesome that they tried to make that. Tried to have a world that depicted that realistically. I think that's
sure.
Do you mean when a ship with wings banks in space and they just dip their wing and suddenly the ship turns? It's amazing.
Do a barrel roll.
Right.
No, I mean I agree with that. I liked the space combat. Fine, I agree with Matt that the filming of it was rough. I liked that it didn't really get in the way. It felt threatening enough. I liked the grav chairs that I guess they were, and whatever liquid they had to like pump into their bloodstream to like be able to handle the G's more.
Which is also
I liked all that. Yeah, I liked all that a whole lot. But I mean, what I really want to, I guess we should define the structure of the show, because the structure of the show matches the structure of the books in that we really have two main characters. We have Miller, who's the detective, the Belter detective on Sarah's station, and then we have Holden, who's the Earther, but he's an officer of the Canterbury, and eventually the Russain. Just love that shit
great name.
so much. and so these are two different characters, and the story jumps back and forth between them, and they don't meet up till the end of the season. That matches the book because, and correct me if I'm mistaken here, but the person who wrote this book, James S.A. Corey, is actually a pseudonym, and it's actually two guys who wrote the book together, and one of them did the Miller chapters, and one of them did the Holden chapters. Is that right?
That's my understanding.
That's interesting. I didn't realize they perfectly split the chapters. I mean, I guess they definitely like consulted with each other. But like, yeah, that totally stands. Yeah.
They're Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank.
Yeah. So, I mean, and what that kind of does for me is it's almost this is a show taking place in the same world, circling around the same conflict, but it's almost two different shows at times because Thomas Jane plays Joe Miller, who's the tired, worn detective, and his story is basically a noir story. It is a sci-fi noir story. He gets put on a case to find this missing girl, and he's in everything he's doing throughout these 10 episodes is motivated by trying to track down this girl who, it just so happens, is connected to the overall plot that is also causing Jim Holden to just have like the worst week. How long is it supposed to take place? But he's just always constantly in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Kind of a recurring theme with I agree that I have no idea how long it's supposed to take, but I don't find that to be a problem actually.
No, not at all.
So Ty Frank, this was in my brain somewhere. He was George R.R. Martin's longtime personal assistant.
Oh.
And like worked I remember seeing his name mentioned in like George R.R. Martin's blog. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I like the Miller story more. So let's talk about the Miller story.
Okay.
I told you this, Matt, and I'm still not sure. I don't know how I feel about Thomas Jane as an actor. I kind of go back and forth.
Wait, really?
I kind of go back and forth. I think he's very good sometimes, and then he's just very kind of sometimes. But I thought he was very good in this show because I think the show is playing to the exact kind of strengths he has, which is that he's really good at being this like quiet, gruff guy who has a lot of like emotion behind his eyes. And that's exactly who Joe Miller is to me. Like, I love this character. So we should say that Miller is a belter. He was born in the asteroid belt, but he's like kind of obsessed with Earth in a way that a lot of the other belters aren't. Like, I love that he wears the hat. I love the hat so much. I love the introduction of the hat, and I love the line in the first. I had mixed feelings about the pilot, but one of the first lines, the really character-defining lines, is his new police partner asks him why he's wearing that stupid hat, and his response is, "In case it rains." And it's one of those world-building lines that just encapsulates the world so perfectly because water is like the rarest resource on the station. So like the idea of it doesn't rain, they're in space. But it's just like a perfect little, I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah. I thought that was cool. I liked how they kind of call back to that where after he finds Julie dead and he walks out of the hotel, there's like that dribble of water coming from above and he like stands under it and lets it drip all over his face.
Yeah. And he had left the hat behind when he went after Julie.
Yeah.
And his character goes through a really big transformation in the story. I mean, it is a noir tale. He's a corrupt cop who takes bribes and doesn't really give a shit. The Belters hate him because he betrays their people. The Earthers hate him because he's not one of them, and he's just kind of like doing his own thing to survive. But he falls in love with this woman, this idea of this woman, and it completely transforms him. And I love stories like that.
And it's also just like a little bit creepy, but like
it's a little
he kind of sells it anyway, which is why I think this is just like a masterful performance, because it's like, yeah, this guy is just in a horrible place in his life and he's just throwing himself into this investigation and sort of falling in love with the person he's looking for in a kind of creepy way, and he's just like such a lovable character. It's great.
Yeah, well, it's almost like as creepy as it is, it's more wholesome than his actual life.
Yeah, right.
So you're like, get out of your terrible like, because they do kind of show that he is. I don't know if corrupt is the right word necessarily, but he is completely just a tool of the system of power maintenance. He's not like every idealistic bone in his body has been crushed over the years, if he ever even had any.
I'd say corrupt is fair. I mean, we see him taking bribes from the one guy he later threatens to throw out of an airlock because he changes his mind. Yeah. That's a really great way to telegraph your character change too, where he like completely takes the guy's money early in the episode, and then by the end of the episode is threatening to kill him unless he actually does the thing that he's supposed to be doing. The changing of the filters, right?
Yeah, I mean, taking care of the water, and I mean, and then there's the part where like he basically goes after the poor people who are tapping into the water that the rich people use, and it just shows like he's just being like hired muscle. He's not being a cop.
Right. And I mean his love, creepy as it is, of Julie is really interesting to me because again he's this belter that's that like doesn't want to be known as a belter. He like tries to make it look like he's an earther, and she is an earther who has like fallen in love with the belter lifestyle to the point where she's like completely committed to the resistance movement, to the point where like not even he fully believes how much she's committed. And I don't. She's an interesting character too. She's not in the story very often, but we like she's like her ghosts in the story because it's propelling Thomas Jane forward, and then like we're being told by all these people how committed she is, and even though she kind of gets screwed over.
Remind me how much of Julie's story is revealed in the first season?
We get a whole episode of her basically being on the scopuli, and then the Anubis takes them captive.
Why'd you pronounce it wrong?
I forgot how to pronounce it now after watching the show.
The show made a joke about pronouncing it correctly and then continued to pronounce it wrong.
It's Anubis, right?
It's Anubis, yeah.
Anubis. And then she finds the they only say the word once, so I'm not sure if it's considered a spoiler to say the word on the show.
What?
But the name for the thing.
They said the name for the thing?
I don't
remember that.
Okay, then we won't say it.
Spoilers.
Well, they said it. So,
well, then it's not spoilers. Just tell me, what was the name of the thing?
Well, the proto molecule is the word they say. So I was going to refer to it as the proto molecule.
That's not like a name.
It's the only name we have from the first season. So, and then they find that, and then
it kills everybody.
It kills everybody. I'm kind of butchering this.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, her story in the first season is we find her dead in the hotel on Eros, and then we see what happened to her on the ships, and we know her father is like the one in charge of this experiment around this thing, cool. And she's rebelling against him by joining this organization. If there's more to her story, we don't know it yet, but.
Okay, I wasn't even implying if there was or was not more. I was like, how much actually is revealed about?
Yeah. Okay. But I do. I mean, I think like to go talking about Miller again. Yeah, he's like, I don't know. He's a sad character. Like you really do feel for him.
Yeah.
I will say one thing that the show does that weirded me out a little bit is it's not that it recaps itself, which it does, and I think that's very helpful because the show is very twisty and turny, and like the plots that are going on here, like the show reminds you of what they are at times, like both through Miller and then through one of the other characters. But like the scene where he was in Julie's apartment and the bird came up and said hi, like they just play that entire scene again in the 9th episode. And I was like, do we really need that whole scene again? Like it was just, I mean, maybe it's because I'm binging it, but maybe for people that were watching it, it's like been 2 months and having that scene play again is helpful. But I was just like, this is just like the same scene again. It's like, and they just threw it in here at the beginning of an episode.
Yeah, this makes me think that they actually, like, the production of this show was actually just a nightmare from the beginning. Like,
yeah, it probably was.
Little things like that everywhere, and sort of the budget, and then the eventual canceling, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But like yes, I agree.
Yeah, but I mean like I love the Mars Earth Belter conflict. I love this triumvirate of fighting, and or lack of fighting, just tension, right? It's just like this constant tension, and I enjoy how the show kind of rolls out the tension to you through a lot of the characters. Like the first time we meet the Mars people, we're like convinced that they're evil because we're convinced that it was Mars that blew up the Canterbury, and they're at fault. And we're like, shit, the Mars people are the bad guys, and they're very militaristic. And you're like, oh, we kind of instinctively don't trust the hyper militaristic group. And I'm not saying they're like good, but the ones we meet seem like decent guys.
Yeah, I thought it was fun how they took the one guy who's doing the interrogations and they make him seem super creepy and obviously evil.
Yeah.
And then he like literally sacrifices his life to save them and gives like a poignant speech about how Martians are like really good people because they're all dedicated to this cause of unity and stuff.
His last words, if I really wanted to see ocean on Mars, was like really sad. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's sort of the George R. R. Martin rubbing off on the story, is that none of the characters are really cartoons. Their super aren't really villains.
Yeah.
They're just people that have different motivations and
Yeah. Well, and they did it with Christian too, the UN Deputy Undersecretary, who like, and I think it's really smart how the show did this. You meet her torturing a man.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
this is an evil lady. And then through the course of the show, we learn more about her and learn that she's almost as much of a pawn in this whole thing as anyone else is. And her motivation is related to guilt over her son. And I just think it's very clever how the show did that. Like it keeps you on your toes. Like you feel like you've got a handle on who the bad guy or guys are, but it's never the person you think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Sure seems like the folks at the end are bad.
Well, okay. Well, yeah, the creepy people that we don't know, and we still don't know at the end of the season who those people are, right? I mean, we know it's Julie's father is doing something, but like the people who built the stealth ship and what they're planning on doing, that's still a mystery, right?
Unclear.
I think so. I think. Yeah. I mean,
I know I'm asking you questions, making you struggle to remember since you both have read the first book.
I'm just looking at the list of episodes and seeing what is revealed when.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough evidence for you to conclude at the end of the season.
Yeah. But they're definitely evil because their helmets look different.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. They look more inhuman. They look like Sauerkraut. So another character who you're very concerned about toward the beginning, and then he becomes your absolute favorite character in the whole show, is of course Amos. I mean, so this is one character from the books where I'm just like, I don't even remember this character in the books. He was in the books. What I'm saying is he's so much more memorable as just this like so like refreshingly straightforward that you just can't help but love him. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, but he also reminded me of a lot of like military type people I've known in real life, and just love him.
Yeah, he's you're right. He's a very kind of like stiff, kind of straight-laced military guy. He's completely loyal to Naomi, the engineer of the ship. So like, I think they describe him as like her as keeping his leash. And he's no nonsense. He's scary. He's a pretty scary dude.
Yeah.
But like, I mean,
he seems like a little off, which is sold completely by the guy.
The actor. Yeah. Well, I think go ahead.
I think it takes a lot of skill, both in his acting and in the direction of the show, to both depict him as being a little off and still making him a little bit heartwarming, like making you like him. Like to handle both those things at the same time, I think is challenging. And the fact that the show was able to do that impressed me a little bit, because I really didn't know scene to scene how I'm supposed to feel. Like, it's like, I really like this guy, but like he could just go off and kill people at any moment.
Yeah.
I think that's the correct response.
Yeah.
Well, I thought like in terms of, I don't know why this strikes me as a George R. R. Martin thing, but maybe it's because I know that he was probably an influence on one of the writers. But in the second episode, him and Holden are sitting on the hull of the ship, and he says, I have the quote in front of me. I can take a core apart and put it back together with my eyes closed, but ask me whether or not I should rip off your helmet and kick you off this bucket, and I couldn't give you a reason why I should or shouldn't. Except Naomi wouldn't like it. and it's great because first of all, it's like chilling and terrible, but it's a great like little sort of like character statement of intent where you're like, oh, okay, I understand this guy now.
Yeah, I mean, I that whole crew, I think it's really well done. Jim Holden is not my favorite character in the show, who plays our other protagonist, the Earther, that's basically becomes the captain of the why can't I say it? Rocinante. Thank you. And I like how they did this with this crew. So the show starts and he's the one so they get this distress signal from the ship, and he's the one that logs it. He betrays them basically and logs it. So basically everything that happens from this moment on is his fault. And so you kind of start this group of people with like, they're all the enemy, and he's like, you're worried that the rest of them are going to find out, and the second they find out, they're going to flip out and kill him. Especially Amos, because he's kind of a little crazy. And really, the only person on his side in this, or the only person that knows, rather, is Naomi. And then as the show moves on, like they especially after they almost all turn on each other during the investigation on the Martian ship, they really like there's a bond that grows between these people, and like by the time they all figure out that he was the one, that he actually tells them all, like you're not worried about that anymore because they've bonded as a team. And I really like that. Like it's so fun. Like we're talking about the Miller half is the detective noir mystery type half. This half is the Firefly, like crew that loves each other side of the story, the traditional science fiction, like really tight crew that's been through thick and thin together and will do anything to save each other side. And I enjoyed the noir part more, but I did still enjoy this because of that camaraderie between these characters.
I think it's almost a little bit trope defying because Holden is a horrible decision maker.
Yeah.
Like not only does he betray the crew by reporting the logs, but he's the one who jumps the gun and gives the broadcast saying that it was a Martian ship that nuked the Canterbury just because they found what an idiot would know was like a planted piece of technology. And even though his team is literally trying to pull him away from the camera and while he's doing this terrible thing, like a lot of terrible stuff is completely his fault, and he makes a lot of terrible decisions, and he's not like he's no Jim Kirk. He's a stupid guy.
Yeah, I mean,
but he's go ahead.
The authors have described the eventual 9-book series as his arc as a character. So like this first book in the season of the TV show is really like setting the stage for Holden's kind of naivety and how he thinks the world works, which isn't really at all how the world works. And he makes bad decisions constantly.
As much as I'm a little cooler on him than some of the other characters, the setup of his is very interesting. Like this idea that he was basically raised by his many parents, like as told he's the savior. Like he's told by all these women, you are the thing that's going to save the land, or put another word, you're going to save the world, Holden. And then like one of his moms realizes that's not going to happen. Like that's like they're fighting a losing battle, and he's much better off leaving and going to find a purpose elsewhere. And I think that's a really fascinating starting point for a character who has basically like been told all his life, it is your mission, your destiny to do this one thing, and now actually we were wrong. That's not going to happen. Go out into the coldness of space and find meaning out there. And he's of course struggling with that, and I think it's part of why he tries to take charge and make those decisions, even though they are bad, because like he's not like earned that at all. It's just been imprinted in his head for so long that he's going to be the guy, even though sometimes you shouldn't be the guy.
Right. I think it's really actually interesting that in the first episode, the captain tries to make him CEO, and he's like, no, you really don't want me to be CEO. I don't really want to be CEO. It's not that's not me. It would be a bad choice. And then because he is in that position when this whole thing kicks off, his like innate sense of moral righteousness kicks in, and it just kind of propels him for the whole rest of the season, I think, because he's basically right about himself that he shouldn't actually be in a leadership position because he's not really qualified. But once he decides that, like, oh, well, I need to do what's right, then, well, all bets are off.
Yeah. Let's talk about some other characters. Let's talk about Mr. Fred Johnson.
Oh yeah, I was gonna mention Fred Johnson. He's so mysterious.
He's very mysterious. Like this, I mean, this is out of all the characters, the entire show pauses to give us like almost an episode long flashback of his origin story, like where he murdered a bunch of innocent people.
Right.
I think that's really interesting, right? I mean, like, we don't know what to make of this character. He's definitely not a main character yet, but the fact that the show like took the time to define, to relay this thing that defined him as a human being was interesting to me. What did you guys think of it?
Yeah, I guess I felt it was sort of painting the Belters with a gray morality brush, that like you're supposed to think that these people in his situation have to make kind of horrible calls all the time, and also just kind of make you wary of him as a person in general. But I don't know, when I first saw the first series, I was kind of confused about how I was supposed to feel about Fred Johnson for the entire first season.
Okay, good.
Whether or not he was supposed to be good or bad. It was like, I kind of felt he was just supposed to be the bad guy, but he also never really did anything objectively horrible to the main character, so I was just kind of confused and worried.
Yeah, from the perspective of how they set the show up, it does seem like you have him, like in all his scenes with the main cast, he seems to be earnestly trying to get things that make sense, basically. Yeah. But you know this thing about who he is and what his past is, and that he's known as like this horrible butcher. And I feel like the book explores his character a little bit more, and I'm pretty sure that that the future of the show is going to explore his character more. Like you said, Scott, I think they're just setting him up mostly.
Yeah, I think they didn't. Honestly, I think they just didn't handle it very well in the TV series. Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's just a little confusing.
I was trying to come up with a way of saying that without being just inherently negative, because I did really enjoy the show, but I agree. Like it feels weird to me that we do stop the forward momentum of the show to do this episode long flashback, and the episode is cutting back and forth between things. So the flashback takes place over the course of an entire episode, but the whole episode is not the flashback, which is a little structurally weird in the first place. Like to be cutting back and it doesn't quite work out for me. I actually missed the pop-up menu when it said years ago. So I was like, when it was showing the people on the station that were like Anderson station that were rebelling, for like the first time I saw it, I was like, wait, who are these? What? Who are these? Where are we now? And it was a little confusing for me, but I like Chad Coleman, who plays him a lot. He played Cuddy in The Wire, and he's a good actor, and I think he gives a good performance. But yeah, I mean, I think the show is so steeped in mystery, and of these three factions, you have no idea who you're supposed to trust.
Yeah.
That the show never allows you to get a good handle on him. I think by the end of the show, when he gives this kind of rousing speech, you're supposed to maybe like him a little more.
Yeah. Well, they try to humanize him by having him be like obviously really nervous about the speech.
Right. And he, I mean, in the speech he calls back. He's like, look, these people are crazy, and I would know. Like you know my past. Everyone knows my past. I've done terrible things, and so like the use of that flashback makes sense. I just don't know if we needed the entire. If we're gonna spend time doing an entire backstory of a character, I think the character needs to be more in the plot than he is.
I think it's they didn't do as good of a job as they could have setting up the sort of inter-OPA conflict in the first season.
Yeah.
Which is like, there's a lot of depth to the OPA and like just the entire belt like government, and the first season is almost entirely centered on Avsarala and like how she's like trying to steer Earth in a direction that's not crazy. So it's just kind of too many threads. They already cut a lot of stuff just to like turn it into a TV series. But
yeah, I was gonna comment like Naomi's character feels not nearly as important in the show as she felt in the books.
Yeah, I agree.
In the book, rather. And like we don't know anything about her. Like we know nothing about her at this point, right? Like basically we just know a bunch of enticing tidbits of like, is she actually something else other than what she appears? I don't know. She's too smart to be an engineer on an ice hauler. But like,
yeah, there's a lot of that, isn't there? Like the show likes to play fast and loose with like, who are these people more than they seem, and it really never pays off.
Yeah.
Like even like they introduced the concept of she might be more than she seems in like the episode where they're captured by Mars, right? By the Martian ship. Yeah. And then it kind of goes away for a while, and then near the end of this season they bring it back and they're like, man, she's like way too smart of an engineer to be doing what she's doing. And you're like, huh.
And this is actually something the books do really well, is that they're every dropped thread is picked back up within a book and closed and like tied in a nice bow. So I think it was just the TV creators juggling too many balls, and then they kind of
makes sense.
We'll handle it next season, and then just
to
the next season.
I think the one thing we should say is there's a ton of characters in the story. Yeah. Like there's a lot of characters, and a lot of them are main characters. So I think we can give it a little bit of leeway in its ability to juggle all of them in one 10-episode season for sure.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like how adaptations are intrinsically different from things that are made for the medium, because like we just went on this Avatar spree, and Avatar manages to like move the football forward for every character at a really reasonable pace, where you're not neglecting any one character for very long. Over the course of the 3-season show.
Well, it's because Avatar is a perfect piece of
it's a perfect gem, and also because it was written as a TV show where they were like, this is how many characters we can handle. This is how long an episode is. This is how we plot it all out, and this is how it's going to work. Whereas when you're taking a book that has, just I don't know, 20 important characters, I don't know, I couldn't even guess. Then you're gonna have to drop some threads. You're gonna have to let some things kind of not come to the fore the way they might have otherwise.
Yeah.
Did they get rid of any Russain crew members for the show, or is it everyone that was in the book?
It's everyone that was in the book.
Yeah.
But structurally, like the chapters of the book switch POVs like fairly rapidly. So like chapters are quite short, like 10 to 15 pages, and with POV shifts, not necessarily always to the same person of some crew. Like there, I don't remember if in the first book if it was like Holden chapters only, or there were like some Naomi chapters too. But
I thought, I don't remember.
But that's like the focus of the book is like tight first person perspective on, like first third person perspective on a single character and like what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the diplomat woman whose name I can't. Is that her name?
Yeah.
I don't even remember her being in the first book. Is she?
Yeah, she was.
Are you sure?
This is why Daniel's here.
Yep.
Are we talking about the same?
Let me double check.
No, I don't think she is.
I mean, she's.
What's her name?
Avsarala.
How do you spell that?
Maybe she's not in the first book.
She's not in the first book.
This is embarrassing. We have Daniel here to be the expert.
You must be remember. What is it?
Avsarala.
I don't. That's not helping.
Oh my god, she's not in the first book.
She's not in the first book. Thank Christ. I almost was going to go in for some brain scans. No, she's not. It's just Holden and Miller. And so I was like, what is this? What's going on here? Like, that's why I don't remember her name. It's because
she's definitely in the books. She's just not in the first book.
She's in the second book. She first appears in the second book.
Okay. And that makes sense that if they knew they were going to be including her, they would want to establish her.
Yeah.
Earlier.
Well, and I think, I really like that we go back to Earth and we get like the Earth side of the politics, right? That we get like Daniel said, none of these people, we don't want to depict any of these people as just evil. So like, it seems like Earth or a faction of the people on Earth are really, really pushing for this war to happen. But there are people on Earth that are trying to stop that from happening, even as they kind of bumble their way through it. And she like ruins a guy's life just to confirm that it wasn't Mars that was responsible for the Cant.
Yeah,
destroyed.
I think
I felt bad for that guy.
Yeah.
She's sort
real
of
bad.
She's the hard consequentialist of the story, I think.
Yeah.
And Holden is the hard whatever word.
Deontologist.
Deontologist
Yes.
of the story.
Yeah, that thing that I got called 7,000 times during Worm.
Yeah. So like I liked how the show used her though, because a lot of the stuff that I felt was kind of ham-handedly exposited through the Holden and Miller storylines in the book was much more deftly inserted by being able to switch to this character who has an excuse for being more knowledgeable and having a different perspective and being able to access information that it would kind of break the plot for Miller and Holden to know. So I thought that was actually very clever. There's another character, Espionage Man, the guy with the eyes. I'm pretty sure he's not in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
And I think his inclusion is a fantastic decision, because it kind of takes what is like the threat of them being chased around and hunted by mysterious parties and turns it into like, oh, this is now represented by a character that they can interact with, rather than just being kind of like a vague threat. And because like, and honestly, just if you kind of imagine what if his character hadn't been in the show, that actually, like, just think of all the scenes where he is actually providing a lot of the conflict in the scene, a lot of the tension. Well, now you will understand that the scene doesn't have that conflict because.
Oh yeah, I mean he's hugely important to ramping up the tension between Holden and Amos.
Yeah.
I mean, he like the scene between him and Holden on the space station where he's basically like dooming him to death is a pretty important scene for Holden. This guy who's like been very much throughout the course of the show, like, we can't kill anyone. We have violence is not the way. We have to reject this. And now he won't do it directly, but he's basically dooming this guy to death. And it's a really emotional scene that Stephen Strait, the guy who plays Holden, I thought did a pretty nice job on. In like he's just so exhausted and worn down by the duplicity of people that he's just tired. He's just like it's so. I mean, like we said, like both Miller and Holden are like almost coming from the opposite sides of the spectrum, where Miller is this guy who's just been completely broken down by the realities of life in the belt, and Holden kind of still has some optimism to him, and we kind of see Miller them approach the halfway point, right? I think they're both kind of more in the middle by the end of the season.
They're closer to the middle, but Miller is still just like wasting people right and left.
Well, yeah, I mean he's definitely. I mean he's not gonna like. I don't think he's gonna stop killing people. That's not who Miller is. But I think he's much more like generally optimistic about existence and doing the right thing. Now he has this very direct shoot you in the face method of doing that, but I
mean, I think he's found something to fight for instead of just being like a rent-a-cop for an asteroid or comet company. Yeah. Like, yeah.
But Amos killed his buddy. There's going to be conflict there.
Conflict.
Yep, setting things up.
Assuming, of course, that our two characters don't just die because they've both been horribly poisoned by radiation.
Yeah, so that was one thing I wanted to ask you about, because one thing, because I read the book, I knew all the twists and turns. I was just wondering how that moment affected you as a viewing experience. When
it was a little, I don't know why it was happening. So and I'm just gonna kind of like break down what I think is going on at this point. So they're on Arrow Station. They've gotten the sample of the thing from Julie's body, and now they're gonna test it on people. And so they're just going to infect all these people. And they've made up issues. I guess they made up a radiation leak as an excuse to round people up. And instead of just like making it up, they just actually just shot a bunch of radiation throughout the station.
Yes.
Is that what happened?
They do spray the station with radiation.
Well, more specifically, they're locking the people in the radiation bunkers, and then they actually are dumping radiation into the radiation bunkers specifically.
Okay.
Which is why like they run outside and close the door, and then they're not being dosed anymore. But the people inside the radiation shelters are being cooked on purpose.
But if they're if they're trying to test what happens with the biological weapon, why are they also dosing them with radiation?
Why indeed?
Okay, so that's supposed to be a mystery. Okay.
Yeah. So another thing that I was like, I don't know if this is a flaw or maybe I don't know. And I'm asking you because you didn't read the book, but like the book makes a much bigger deal about the fact that this is just a colossal atrocity. That this is like 100,000 people have been killed here, and they say it in the show that they say at one time 100,000 people are on that station that were just murdered, but the show like it's like holy shit, that's horrifying. That's incredibly like I don't know. The show just doesn't seem to make as big a deal out of it as I thought the book did, and I was wondering how that. Like, did you even notice the line where they said it was 100,000 people?
I did. I remember that line. I do agree that, like, I mean, just thinking about it now, I didn't. I heard it. I didn't feel it. Like, I mean, there's one scene where like there's like a group of people writhing on the floor that they obviously have been infected by the blue thing.
Yeah.
And that's horrible. And you feel it in that moment. But again, and I think this might just be a budget production issue that like that's like 30 people because they couldn't they didn't have a lot of showing the scale of it was impossible. But I don't know if the show did a good job making you feel the scale of it really, besides just that one throwaway line that Thomas Jane almost kind of like mumbles and then they just kind of move on. I agree that like I didn't feel the catastrophe of what was happening here as much. I think part of that too is where your brain is and where your emotions are at this moment are trying to wrap your head around what's going on, and less like you're kind of trying to solve the mystery as everything's coming together in this final episode. You're trying to solve that mystery. You're not really thinking about the emotional effects of what this testing is doing.
Yeah, that's fair. Like the book way belabored it, and like there were feeds from the station that were like broadcast to the solar system, and like people were freaking out. And also it was more like Dead Space gore. There wasn't like glowing blue alien gore. It was just like body horror gore in the books.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I kind of wish it was that.
I almost wonder if they couldn't do as, because it was, I mean, Dead Space is exactly the right reference. It's horrifying and disgusting, and I wonder if they literally couldn't do that on sci-fi, you know?
Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if maybe they do introduce us to some of the people. We get like brief conversations with them where they were like, there's that little girl where she's trying to help save that little girl, and the little girl goes against her mother at the end to go with them. But maybe if the show had like tried to personalize, like if we knew some of the people in that big pile of suffering dead people, it maybe would have hit us more than just anonymous suffering people.
No,
I mean, I'm again, I don't like to be too hard on them for this because they're trying to juggle a bunch of tonal balls and keep a good pace. And I don't really have any complaints. It's more like I noticed certain things because I had read the book. And so I'm just kind of like noticing the like, adaptations are different from the book.
Yeah. I mean, I just like to kind of zoom out a little bit and look at the show as a whole. Like there are parts of this that I didn't think worked very well, but like just this general idea of, hey, let's use this science fiction show about like really cool technology in the future to really dive down into just how bad governments can make people suffer. Like, I mean, this is again what I think science fiction does best sometimes, is really like zoom in on like systems of power and how they hurt people. Because like, yeah, I mean, we have the OPA and we're not sure what to make with them. We have Earth and we have the Martians, but really the everyday people that we see like trying to stir up rebellion. I mean, those people just they just want air.
Yeah.
Like they just want air.
I think it's a really cool and smart like both a sci-fi conceit, but also very cleverly a real science thing, is that the Belters literally can't come back to Earth. Like their bodies can't survive it, and they show that immediately in the show, so that you viscerally feel it. But like, and it's kind of easy to forget later on, but like it's worth remembering that like Miller, like he literally can't set foot on Earth.
Yeah.
And neither can anyone else, and like that's a cool like they're I don't know, you can be mythological about it. You can say like, yeah, they've fallen from grace, they can never go back, and it's just this interesting, like, because if they could, it would imply that they could like invade Earth if they wanted to, but no, that's off the table entirely. They can't actually, but Earth can invade them, and it just creates this interesting asymmetrical situation.
I'm curious if in the book they make the biological differences between the Belters' bodies and everyone else's like more distinct.
Oh yeah. Significantly.
I'm guessing they did. I'm guessing because that's like a thing that you just like, there's no way you could actually do that in a show and not have it cost millions upon millions of dollars.
Naomi is supposed to be like 6'5".
Yeah. And they just I mean, in the show I did notice that they like for particular roles where it's going to be an important role, they'll cast like a weirdly tall person and to be a Belter, but sometimes they don't. So like so like, you remember his partner is Martian, and they make a big deal out of like there's no way you could ever pass for a Belter, but it's like watching the show you're like, why? but
like that's a very much a tell not show thing where they couldn't show, because I mean there is that the Belter that gets tortured at the very beginning of the show like looks significantly different. Like he looks like his limbs are long, he's very bone skinny. He looks different, and my immediate thought when I saw that was, I bet this is what like they all look like, and it just was completely impractical for them to actually be able to do that in the show.
That's
because Thomas Jane looks like a tall built like super strong dude.
I think that's exactly right.
They just gave up because it's too hard, but like that's fine.
I'm not gonna fault them for that either.
No.
But that's good to know that the book does it that way. I should read that book.
You should.
Yeah, you should get around to that at some point.
The other thing I like is like, so I mean, we have this complex weave of plotting, but one of the things I really like is that the Canterbury was an ice hauling ship, right? And the Canterbury gets blown up, and that means something for the overarching tensions of the governments, but it also means something just for the people on Ceres, because they needed that water, and so suddenly there's heavy water rationing. So I like how the show has these things ping off each other in plot heavy ways, but just like, this is what would happen. The ice hauling ship got blown up. Ceres is going to be agitated, and I mean, you learn later that like this was all part of a complex plan to specifically start agitating tensions between all three factions. But I think it's cool.
It's clever and efficient plotting.
When our boy Alex like sits there in his ship and like recaps the entire plot for us, it all connects together in a really nice, satisfying way.
Oh, well,
we haven't talked about him at all.
We haven't talked about him, and I also don't want to forget to talk about the medic.
He was my friend's favorite character when they were watching the show.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I think Alex is great. Like I didn't know how to feel about this guy at first. His personality really works on me. He's funny. I don't know. I really enjoyed him. Cass Anver plays him. I don't know if I've seen them in much else, but
yeah,
really like
he's almost like normal guy, straight man to the rest of the crew, because everyone else is kind of an archetype. And yeah, he gets to have his moments of being like kind of a badass pilot, but also kind of not a badass pilot actually, but he's getting his chance at least.
Yeah, he's so happy about finally getting to fly a warship because like he never got to do that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's a great reacting to the ridiculous of the situation, sort of audience insert character. And I think he's, I mean, all the acting in the show is spot on. I think, I mean, they really bring a lot of life to characters, which are fairly simple and straightforward in terms of, I don't know, just like they are archetypes, right? Like, and that's okay. But the actors bring a lot to them, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think this entire series is a fantastic example of tropes done well. Like just taking just solid tropes and using them. And like, I mean, okay, that's like how you write stories. Stories are tropes.
I don't think anything we've talked about through the course of this 50-minute conversation is like new, right? Like all of these elements have existed before, and it's just a lot of times it's down to execution, and I do think this show executes on it really well. Speaking of execution, what do you want to talk about the medic? What do you want to say about the medic, Matt?
Well, I mean, so first of all, I just thought it was really good storytelling how he stays in the story up until just about the exact nanosecond where you don't really need that character around anymore. But like not in a way where it feels like contrived. It's just like, oh, and then the fact that he's killed in such a meaningless way makes you feel like, oh, this, like I can actually believe that these characters are threatened. It amps up the tension and the stakes a bit to believe that anyone on the crew could die. And you know, and he's kind of I like that, like you start to like him basically in the exact same episode where he's killed. At least that was my experience, where I just thought he was annoying, and then he like he's actually kind of being a good guy and helping out in this episode. And
he's definitely like the coward, right? He's like the most scared out of any of them, and then he finally finds his strength and then gets his head blown off.
Also, the railgun shot that blows a hole through the ship starts leaking oxygen at a realistic rate.
Instead of being like instantly sucks all the air out of the room in 0.5 seconds, it's just like a whoosh that they can move around and gradually plug up at their leisure.
Right. Yeah, it's great. I love it. Love the show.
Yeah.
The first thing I saw him in was the movie Road Trip. And I couldn't not see the character he played in Road Trip. So I said after the first episode, I was like, Matt, I can't handle this character. I hope he dies. And then I felt a little bad when he got his head blown off. A little bad.
I wanted to just call out the protomolecule really quick as a plot device and how it functions very similar to how like the White Walkers functioned in the first Game of Thrones book, and how it's just kind of this background alien thing that you just like. The setting is played very straight in terms of being like, you know, real and except in the future, but it doesn't go crazy on the like fantastical alienness. It's just like a mysterious thing in the background. And I thought that was handled pretty well. Until the end.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing I'll say, I don't know if I liked the opening shot of the show. I don't know if I like the decision to show Julie on the ship, like seeing the thing. I feel like a lot of the early part of the show is the mystery of like where this girl is, and the show just like you realize right away who it is as soon as Miller gets the picture and says, "I need you to find this girl." He's like, "Oh, she's the one on that scary ship with the blue thing that ate that guy." So I feel like that hurt the mystery story of the show a little bit. I don't know if I would have done that.
Yeah, I hear you. I think I agree, or at least they could have shown us, like they could have shown us that she's locked up somewhere and like alive, but not shown us where. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth on it because the showing that there's a weird glowing blue sci-fi thing is kind of the White Walker showing up at the beginning of Game of Thrones, where you're like, "What's this? What's this? This is enticing." But I also happen to think that effects shot was like the worst effects shot in the whole show. So, like in contrast, especially to like the last shot of the season, where the thing like grabs Espionage Man and pulls him up into the thing, and it's like, oh my god, that's horrifying and awesome, and it's a great way of like showing that this is way weirder than you even realized.
Mm-hmm. Here's what I agree, that it's very similar to the Game of Thrones opening shot, but here's the difference to me. If like the first season of Game of Thrones was about the mystery of what happened to those three people, like if that's a large majority of what the plot of the first season of the show is, and we saw exactly what happened to them in the opening 2 minutes of the show, I probably would have be saying a similar thing.
Yeah.
And I think what it does for me in this show is I kind of just assumed she was dead already. So the moment where we actually find out, oh, she's dead, I was like, okay, well, I had emotionally already gone to she's probably dead. So then we have a moment where we're like, okay, maybe she's not dead because the person clearly left the ship. But then, no, she dead.
I feel like it's hard to. I'm trying to imagine how I would try to do this without making it silly, and you could make it more subtle. Like you could not directly show Julie on the ship. You could have like someone banging on a door, and then you just see like people freaking out on the ship or something, and then much later you like flash back to it's her that was banging on the door or something. But it perhaps they're just trying to tie too many plot threads into one bow.
Yeah, this might be a really weird complaint. Like I don't know how much I'd go into defending this. I just the idea for me, it just felt like a little bit of the mystery of the mystery was sapped. A little bit of the concern for the girl. Like I feel like to get into Miller's head, you really have to like share his strong desire to find this person. And I was like, I thought that was already like, I already knew.
Yeah, I don't think it's that minor of a complaint actually, because or a point maybe, because like we've between the three of us probably read a shitload of detective and mystery stories, and like that is definitely, there's definitely a right way to do it. Like you don't want, there's a right time to dole out information, and I think that intro shot probably gave us information that we shouldn't have had. And
okay, let me ask this question: does the book start like that?
It does, but I don't actually remember if it tells us that that's Julie, because it's a book and so it doesn't show her face.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah. I don't remember whether or not it tells us that it's Julie.
I think it's Julie's POV. So, but you might not like know her name or something. It might be using her fake name.
Yeah, I don't remember. But like, yeah, I mean, it's just like in any one of the I think a good rule of thumb in mystery stories is that you shouldn't know information that the detective doesn't know.
Yeah, that's I think that is where I'm at. I mean, that's a good way of
kind of don't like all you know is she was on the ship, and which you kind of figure out pretty quickly in the course of the show. Like you don't know what happens to her. I'm saying I wasn't super put off by this. I thought it was just like,
yeah, that's fair. We don't need to keep talking about it. That's just one thing that I was thinking about where the show didn't work as well for me.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else we wanted to talk about? Let's talk about how it got canceled, I guess. Let's finish on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, this show played for 3 seasons, and then got canceled. And it's not as if like the ratings were bad. I don't know, like
viewership even. I was looking at the viewership numbers, and they were actually fairly steady throughout season 2 and 3. So I'm like,
yeah,
Who knows?
Yeah, it was fairly popular amongst fans. The viewership was good, but business, guys, business gets in the way. There was basically a lot of like distribution nonsense and contracting that just made Sci-Fi not want to bother. And so they just didn't want to. They were either frustrated or someone got offended or didn't want to have to deal with the complexities of the fees and the structure going through the distribution. So they said, nope, we're not going to do it. We're going to cancel it. And then the internet did a good thing, which is. I know. There were a whole bunch of petitions, crazy number of petitions, and I think one got 100,000 signatures. That was like going to Netflix, going to Amazon, saying save the show, pick up the show, because the production company still wanted to produce it. It was just distribution. They just had no one to distribute it. So everyone was still in except for the distributors. So they're like, Amazon, Netflix, do it. I know Jeff Bezos was like. He's like a huge fan of this book series and this show, right? So like there was a crowdfunding campaign to pay for an airplane to fly around Amazon Studios with a banner that said #Save the Expanse. Yeah. And look, we talk like online petitions are dumb, especially the ones that are like, I didn't like Game of Thrones, please redo it. I didn't like The Last Jedi, make it again.
There's currently a petition to cancel Good Omens because it's blasphemous.
Yeah. There's a petition to cancel Good Omens that was sent to Netflix. It's not where Good Omens is on. Also, Good Omens was a one-time run show. They're not going to make any more, so it worked. It's canceled. It's already canceled. There we go. Yeah. So, I mean, for the most part, online petitions are bad. I think this is a good one, though. This is fandom saying we love something. Please keep doing it. Not we hate you. Do it the way I want you to. And it worked. And so Jeff Bezos said, yep, Amazon's picking it up. Production began on the 4th season last year, and it's supposed to come out. I don't know if they've said like an official release date yet, but it is coming out this year. They've said
just 2019 sometime.
Yeah. So that's exciting. That's cool. Like, and I like seeing that kind of stuff. Like, I wonder if nowadays like Firefly would have been saved. Probably.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, it would have just been on Netflix, and Netflix would have kept making it because.
Yeah. Well, Netflix. I don't know. Netflix cancels some random stuff these days. Stuff that they really shouldn't cancel. So I don't know.
Just petition Lord Bezos in his wisdom. He will save us all.
So as much as Jeff Bezos just makes far too much money, he does good things.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. See, it's a world of gray morality that we live in.
So the conclusion of The Expanse is actually billionaires are good.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Didn't see that coming.
In direct contrast to its own themes.
Fascinating. I mean, that is kind of ironic, though, right? That this is a show about corruption, greed, and government control hurting the common man. And it was saved by the richest human being in the world.
Yeah. Makes you think, don't it?
It does. It certainly does make you think. Yeah. So that's The Expanse. Matt, are you going to watch the other seasons?
Well, the real question is, am I going to read the books and then watch the show, or watch the show and then read the books? Because I do want to watch the show, but I'm not sure if I want to like be spoiled on what happens in the books and then go read the books, and so it's kind of a little bit of a tangle. But the short and less annoying answer is I'm definitely going to watch the show eventually. Yeah,
I think I'm right with you on that. The first book, Leviathan Wakes, is currently up for our July book club poll, and it is currently in first place. So we might be reading the first book for the book club. Awesome. So I know you've already read it, but you'll read it again and you'll like it.
I will actually.
And I'll read it for the first time. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the series isn't done yet, right? Like, I think there's one more book that hasn't come out yet.
One more book.
But unlike George, Ty will make his deadline. Is that?
He learned his lessons.
Yeah.
They're just I'm looking at the release dates, and they have come out reliably once a year up to the 7th book. And actually, no, what is that?
I mean,
they come out like once a year. It's crazy.
Just think how annoying it must be to be George R. R. Martin's assistant and just be like, if I when it's my turn, I'll never be late with anything.
And then of course George would say, "Well, yeah, you only have to write half a book, so write half of this, and maybe it'll be out."
Yeah, and your books are like 500 pages, not like 1,000. So.
Yeah. Well, whose fault is that, George?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that is The Expanse. Enjoyable. We'll be back. I agree. Deciding which I'm going to do first. I'm not sure. Certainly easier to pop on Prime than read 8 books, but we'll see.
True.
All right, guys. I wanted to talk about some stuff we've been watching real quick because I saw a movie last week that I wanted to sadly share my opinion with you guys about.
Oh, no.
I saw Men in Black International.
It looks so fun and quirky.
And fresh.
Well, I don't know if fresh is the right word. Yeah, so I love Chris Hemsworth. I think funny Chris Hemsworth is best Chris Hemsworth. I really enjoy Tessa Thompson as well. I think Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth make a good team. They were very funny together in Thor Ragnarok. This is not a good movie. It's just kind of dull. It's really surprising to me. Like it's not doing anything special in the like to earn its existence. You know, like we had these 3 Men in Black movies, and the first one was legitimately great. The second one was and the third one was okay. But it's been a while, and they come out with this movie, and it's just kind of a mess. The funniest character is a little alien dude played by Kumail Nanjiani. He's like the only part I really laughed in the movie. Just without spoiling the movie, the setup is that Tessa Thompson plays a woman who witnesses something when she's a kid. They don't erase her memory. They miss her. And so she spends her entire life searching for the Men in Black. And at the start of the movie, she finally finds them and convinces them to make her an agent. And I think that's like a really fascinating twist on it, because like the whole thing is like they recruit you, they find the best of the best of the best, sir. And so that's an interesting twist on it, but it just doesn't matter to the story. It has nothing to do with her story. It has nothing to do with the overarching plot of the movie at all. It's just a setup that's just like, And like she is a very work driven, like she has no relationships. She doesn't care about anything except for work. Her entire life has been towards getting into the Men in Black, and that's her whole thing. And Chris Hemsworth plays a guy that is like a hero of Men in Black London, and he's kind of like the opposite, where he doesn't really give a shit about the work anymore, which is like your classic team up, right? But it just doesn't matter to the plot. Like those differing, like none of the conflict, none of the story challenges that difference between them in a way that changes both the characters and they learn and grow. And like it has none of like just like the basics of good character development in it. And that just means it's like a dull movie with a few good jokes in it and some good CGI and a really bad villain. It's sadly just a mess.
Perhaps
it's a mess.
They're just trying to subvert the tropes of normal storytelling.
Yeah. Wouldn't it have been better if Danny Glover had not come to find meaning in his work at the end of Lethal Weapon?
Sure. That would have been such a better movie.
It's doing what you don't expect that makes for a good story.
You know, if I actually for a moment thought that they were doing that intentionally, I would totally be on board with that. It's just not.
What is intention?
It also has stop it. We're not getting into this. It also has like the most obvious plot twist in the entire world. Like
spoilers.
I think I am not saying what the twist is.
You told me
but you're gonna
twist.
You're gonna guess it 5 minutes into the movie because you've seen movies before. If you have watched a movie in your life, you will guess the plot twist 5 minutes into the movie. And the movie, like, I wish I could say that like that was subverting something, but no, they just play it. It's just a bad movie. I'm sorry, guys. It's just a bad movie. And everyone's like, why is this movie underperforming? It's like, because it's bad. Well, it's a bad movie.
Also, Men in Black is not really like a killer franchise. Will Smith is a huge draw.
That's true.
That doesn't mean Men in Black is a huge draw.
Late 90s Will Smith was a huge draw.
Yeah.
And you know what I was thinking the entire time I was watching this movie? They were going to do a 21 Jump Street Men in Black crossover, and it was going to be Schmidt and Jenko as Men in Black agents, directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. And oh, how much I would have loved to see that movie. And once again, the universe conspired to screw Phil Lord and Chris Miller over.
So they're definitely not going to do it now, or?
Yeah, no, it's not happening.
No.
Definitely not happening.
That's such a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, whenever I think about Men in Black, I think about the fact that I was like, I was so excited about it when it came out, and I was like 9 or something. And then I was super disappointed because it wasn't like what I thought it was going to be, because I like thought it was going to be science fiction and not comedy for some reason. And then later realized that it was a brilliant masterpiece after being a little bit older. But
yeah. Let's just Vincent D'Onofrio as Edgar.
Yeah.
Best performance in the history of the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love.
I didn't realize that was him until like decades later.
I still sometimes just go sugar.
Yeah.
In water.
I frequently whenever someone says that there's something wrong with my appearance, I wish that I could like grab the top of my head and stretch my face out and say, "Is this better?" But I don't get to make that joke ever.
Hey, guess what? Men in Black International, no good jokes like that. Sorry.
Okay. Well.
And they did this weird thing that like the X-Men movie did too, where they're like, I feel like it's pandering. It's like pandering to women. And I'm only saying this because I like read some I've read some tweets of some female film critics that agreed that it was rude and pandering, but they like made like a women in black joke, and X-Men Dark Phoenix also made a we should call it X-Women joke. And it's like the bottom of the barrel level, like, I mean, we agree that these names are bad. We agree.
These are also like mid-90s jokes. Like we did this. We had this cultural moment already when I was 10. Okay.
Unfortunately, millennials don't control everything yet, so we can't make everything be woke Twitter. But someday, that is what comedy will be. All
right. Well, that is Men in Black International. Don't go see it. Don't do it. I'm sorry. Daniel, did you have something you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, so I watched the Netflix series Russian Doll, and it was really good. I thought it was like I was extremely pleasantly surprised. It was just like a tightly plotted. So the without spoiling anything, the premise is like a kind of a Groundhog Day like, where it's the main character is reliving the same. Not even the same day, just like the same. She keeps restarting at the same point in time after something keeps happening to her, and it's just kind of the story of just a really interestingly broken person trying to come to terms with her life or something. It's just a great like character study, I think. Yeah. And I strongly recommend it to anyone that has not watched it, and it maybe was just kind of put off by the trailer, because the trailer's kind of weird tonally. Like I don't think the trailer really matches up with what the series is going for. Like it is a dark comedy, but it's more, I think, emotional than the trailer lets on.
Yeah, I really enjoy this too. I agree with you. It stars Natasha Lyonne, and I think she's a creator on it as well. Yeah. Who is having like such a great comeback. Like this woman has had a very challenging life. She was a drug addict and was in recovery for a very long time. Orange is the New Black was like her first like big role in a long time, and it's led to her getting opportunities like this to make this show. And I agree, it's one of the best shows I've seen this year. It's also one of these shows that like do more of this TV where it's 8 episodes and they're 30 minutes long, and it's like, mwah, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect.
It's long enough to where it feels like a show versus a movie, but it's not like a 13 episode Marvel on Netflix thing where it's just like, oh my god, this goes on for so long.
Yeah, it's exactly as long as it needs to be. It actually reminded me of like season 1 Stranger Things and how tightly plotted and just perfect length it was.
Yeah, I am a sucker for time loop stories. Absolutely. Love them. Love Groundhog Day stories. Yep. I don't know if you've ever seen Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You.
Ooh, no, I have not.
Those are slasher / horror Groundhog Day movies, and they're good. They're really good. I like them a lot.
All right, on the list.
Yeah. All right, Matt, did you have anything, or you want to just wrap it up?
Wrap it up.
All right, let's wrap this up. I saw Dark Phoenix. I don't know. Did I talk about Dark Phoenix on here?
I don't remember.
Should I see Dark Phoenix?
Absolutely not. Awful. Terrible. That's all the time we had for you guys this week. If you have any opinions on The Expanse Season 1 or the first book, as long as you don't spoil anything to us, you can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can find all the other shows we do over at our website, doofmedia.com. As we mentioned before, we're currently holding a poll for our book club for July, but our book club conversation for June is happening this Monday, the 24th, at 9:30 p.m. over on our YouTube channel. So subscribe to our YouTube to see that. We're talking about the Nobel Prize winning novel, 100 Years of Solitude. So if you want to talk about that novel with us, hang out.
Yeah.
There's still time to read it over the weekend. I say this because I still have to finish it over the weekend. You can also support us on Patreon. Matt, how do they do that?
Well, they go over to patreon.com/doofmedia, and they can pledge $1 a month or whatever else they can afford to ensure that we keep growing and keep making new content here for this show and our other shows. This episode, where we discussed The Expanse, only exists because of Patron Marcus, who pledged at one of the higher levels and basically got us to watch and do a show on this TV show. And we really appreciate that from you, Marcus.
Yeah, thanks so much, Marcus. Like I said, I bounced directly off the show the first time I tried it. So it's only because of Marcus that I gave it another shot. And I'm very glad that I did.
Yeah, it's almost like you bounced off, but then you orbited back around.
Wow.
Yeah.
Realistic orbits, the most important aspect of the show.
Exactly. Also, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
Daniel, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's always great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Love hearing your opinions on things since you like everything.
I do.
And of course, guys, we mentioned it at the top of the show, but if you have finished Neil Stephenson's new book, Fall, Matt and Daniel did a special bonus episode of the Doofcast, really diving deep into that. I haven't read the book, but I listened to the episode because I was editing it, and so I feel like I've read the book, and I could tell you it was a good conversation, even though I haven't read the book.
Well, thanks, Scott.
You can look for that on our feed or on the YouTube channel. It's the same place you're listening to this. Just search Fall, and you can listen to that.
Cool.
All right, everyone. We will see you next week. I forget what the show's about, but it's something. Next week.
We're also gonna be there's gonna be some traveling at some point.
Yeah,
but that's not gonna affect the show too much.
It shouldn't. No, not this week at least. Maybe in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week. Goodbye.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.